Allow me to introduce myself.
Revolution. Welcome. How pleasant to see you again.
Where in the cosmos am I?
You are in another universe where the dominating force.
Imhotep, greetings, welcome. Ankh Uja Saneb. What I'm holding right here is the Ankh, which means and represents life energy in the Kemetic language. So today, what I want to do is take a couple minutes to acknowledge some special people that made a huge difference in my outlook and my attitude that I had as I overcome the issues of this muscle disease that I'm going through. So, as I was sitting on the 11th floor of the Night Cancer Center and gazing out the window at the beautiful Portland skyline, I really had ample opportunity to sit there and reflect on all those individuals who made a difference in my thinking and also showed me that you can overcome anything you want to. And so, I'm gonna run down a few people that have come in my life, run down a list of the names, and in no particular order. I think I wrote it down just mostly based on the timing of when these events actually happened. So I want to start off with, I told you about the gentleman on my last video that was on the skateboard. He didn't have any legs and he was pushing himself down the street, listening to Stevie Wonder and just seemed to not have a care in the world. When he was singing, I mean, his voice was just so beautiful. It kind of inspired me, and I thought, man, if this guy can be happy and, overcome this and still enjoy life, then why can't I? And so the second person that comes to mind would be the gentleman that came by to install cable. And this gentleman walked in the house, and I never saw him in my life, and he said, "I got good news for you today, my brother." He said, "God told me you're going to be okay. You're not going to die. Everything's going to be all right." And so I started thinking to myself, wow, these are two people that have come into my life and had this tremendous impact just in, that short amount of time. And so then today, as I was looking out that window, I was thinking about the time I used to spend with my kids in the park during the summers with the Portland after-school tennis program. They had a summer program, and a gentleman comes to mind by the name of Dr. Ernest Hartzog. And for those of you in the local area, you probably know him. He's legendary as far as his contributions to the community. But I just pretty much got back to moving around a little bit, and I was helping out, and I was hitting some balls with my son and daughter on the tennis court. And he walked in and he said, "How you doing, Mr. Boozer? So good to see you moving around and swinging that racket again." And I'd mentioned something, this was the toughest thing I've ever had to overcome in my life. And he looked at me, he said, "Well, you don't get to be old without going through one or two things in your life, some sort of adversity." And I thought, wow, that's powerful because, I'm not sure how old he was then. I'm guessing he was in his late 70s, early 80s. I think my mom said he was about 83 at that time I told her I saw him at the park. And so I thought that was just amazing. And then I have my mom's best friend, Mrs. Dorothy Haynes, who I watched her as she battled an illness and the strength and resolve that she showed and got through it. And now she's like living her best life. And it's just simply amazing to me because it's the way that she thinks about the things. And then, of course, I have my mother and father. My father wasn't around when I got sick, but, just watching him go through his thing when he had to battle cancer, that really had a huge impact on me. Even though he was weak physically, he still seemed to be pretty strong and spirited most times. And so that had a huge impact on me. And then, of course, I had all my former co-workers from Multnomah County, like your Jimmy Johnson, Samlay Sukassam, Christy Martin, Jacqueline Tate, and the list just goes on and on. There was Jim Bunker. I really appreciate the fact that they used to come make sure that I got out the house when I was struggling. They would, get me in a wheelchair and take me out to eat something. At that time, everybody was worried about me because I was getting so skinny. That was something that I have a lot of gratitude for. And then, my first wife, if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you folks today because her background working in the hospitals, she knew how to really expedite the situation and get the necessary testing done that ultimately ended up saving my life. And so then, of course, I have my lovely wife Nadine, and she's been my biggest supporter and fan through all this. And I'm human. Every once in a while, I'll get down a little bit, but she's right there to pick me back up. So I really appreciate that. And there's co-workers from my former job at TriMet, where I have one of my old managers, Mr. Dan Stokes, and it was ironic because I made a post today, showed that I was up there, and he happened to be doing the same thing over on the other side of town. So we were kind of sharing that kind of in spirit. And then there's my friend, sister from another Mr. over there in the 757 area called Mrs. Diane McDowell. She has very powerful podcast, which I will be appearing on sometime probably next week. We recorded the show yesterday, and that was very, very powerful. And then my dentist, Dr. John Holland, he's the one that encouraged me to get back out on my bike and ride. And actually, the first major ride I had after I got back on my feet was actually the Portland Bridge Pedal. And that was 37 miles. And I probably would have never done it if I hadn't let him talk me into it. So, John, thank you very much. And then I got my boy, went to Mount Tabor with Craig Sinclair, who's always encouraged me. He lives in Oakland. Hey, and I'll be down in the Bay, Craig. I'll be down there November 6th for the Raider game on the 7th, and then I'll be leaving early that morning on the 8th. And since I'm on the subject of bicycling, there's also a couple other people, or a few other people I should mention in this. I would like to thank Mr. Leroy Stanton, high school classmate over at Benson Tech, class of 81. Leroy and his gang, I think Ray Carter, you were in that maybe, Don, and everybody else that rode along with us. I really want to thank you because Leroy, as much as I cussed you for making me ride all them damn hills, that really prepared me and got me ready to complete that 101-mile bike ride that day. So big ups to you guys. And also, I can't forget Mr. Raymond Proctor, who is unfortunately no longer with us. He passed away, I can't remember how long ago. I'm guessing it was about maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago now. But he was very instrumental in coming by and checking on me all the time when I was ill. He'd make sure I had that, that killer to make sure that I was feeling good and stuff and getting through that pain. And so I really want to give that big special shout out to him. And he was another guy that I would ride with and stuff when I was in my recovery. So I'm really looking forward to the treatment doing its thing and reducing its inflammation so I can get back out there and return to my life as normal. And then I would also like to thank all the people on Facebook and Instagram who passed on those words of encouragement. And I know there's a lot of people I left out there. And one other guy that comes to mind is my late friend, Mr. Steve Harris, who I watched him go through some stuff. But as he was going through it before he passed on to the next dimension, he really made an impact on me too. So for all that, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate y'all. Love you.